some point, you have to ask yourself, is this relationship bringing me peace or just draining me? There's a fine line between fighting for love and holding on to something that's already slipping away. Maybe you keep telling yourself, if I just try harder, they'll see my worth. Maybe you're waiting for them to change, to invest as much as you do, to finally meet you halfway. But here's the truth. Not everyone deserves your effort. Love isn't about proving your value to someone who keeps pulling away. It's about choosing a person who values you as much as you value them. So how do you know when to keep trying and when to walk away? That's exactly what we're uncovering today. No more second guessing, no more wasting years on relationships that never move forward. This is about modern Stoic love, a mindset that helps you invest wisely, set boundaries, and stop chasing what isn't meant for you. Some of what you'll hear might be uncomfortable, because it forces you to see your relationship for what it is. But if you're ready for clarity, for answers, for the truth, stay with me. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly where you stand, and I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt torn between holding on and letting go? Share your thoughts below. Now, let's dive in. 1. Invest, then test. A relationship should never feel like gambling, yet so many women keep placing their bets, hoping that if they invest just a little more, the odds will finally turn in their favor. But love is not a slot machine. It's not about how much you put in, it's about whether what you're putting in is being met with the same effort. There's a delicate balance between patience and self-respect. It's easy to mistake persistence for commitment, to believe that waiting a little longer will change the outcome. But here's what truly defines whether a man is worth your time. Does he meet you halfway, consistently? Does he invest in the connection without needing to be pushed? If he does, you're not chasing, you're building. But if you're constantly the one initiating, waiting, and hoping while he gives the bare minimum, you're not in a partnership. You're in an emotional limbo. Some women tell themselves that if they just try harder, things will change. That if they prove their worth through patience, through unwavering support, through endless understanding, he will finally wake up and realize what he has. But that's not how relationships work. A man doesn't realize your worth because you overextend yourself. He realizes it when he values you enough to invest without needing to be convinced. The Stoics taught that we should never depend on external outcomes to validate our actions. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." The same applies to love. A high-value woman does not measure herself by how much she gives to a relationship. She measures a relationship by whether it is mutually fulfilling. Emma understood this the moment she met Daniel at a networking event. She was radiant. Her confidence, the way she carried herself, the ease with which she spoke. A woman who knew her worth before anyone else did. When Daniel approached her, she didn't hesitate to engage. They exchanged numbers, and that night, she sent him a short message, a simple acknowledgement of their conversation. He responded quickly, keeping the energy alive and matching her enthusiasm without hesitation. Over the next few days, she tested something crucial. Would he continue the momentum? Or was he just responding out of politeness? She reached out once more, subtly leaving room for him to take initiative. And he did. He didn't just reply, he asked questions, made an effort, and showed her that she wasn't alone in making this connection work. That's what makes a difference. Not just words, but action. Not just presence, but consistency. Emma never begged for attention because she never needed to. She understood what many women ignore. If a man truly values you, he won't let you question where you stand. Now contrast this with another woman, Lisa. Lisa met someone under similar circumstances, but convinced herself that if she just showed enough interest, he would respond in kind. She was the one who initiated every conversation, planned every meetup, and filled every silence with effort. The problem? He wasn't absent, he just wasn't engaged. He replied to her texts, but always briefly. He agreed to meet up but never took the initiative to plan. He accepted her attention, but never truly reciprocated it. She told herself he was just bad at texting. She told herself he was busy. She told herself that she needed to give him time. But time was not the problem, his interest was. And deep down, she knew. Because every time she waited for his message and it didn't come, Every time she reached out first and got a half-hearted response, she felt it. That quiet, nagging truth. If love were like tending a garden, it wouldn't be about watering dead soil in hopes that something might grow. It would be about noticing the signs of life. If you plant a seed and see nothing sprout, do you keep watering indefinitely? No. You move on and plant elsewhere. The same goes for love. If your investment doesn't yield anything real, you are not obligated to keep waiting for something to change. And this is where Stoicism gives us the strongest guidance. Detach from false hope. Accept what is, not what you wish it to be. Act based on evidence, not emotions alone. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." And for you, that means being a woman who does not chase, who does not pour into someone who remains indifferent, who does not let her self-worth hinge on whether someone else finally decides to see her value. If a man is truly interested, you won't have to remind him that you exist. He will show up. He will make space. He will invest. And if he doesn't, then the answer is already clear. You don't need to beg for the sun to rise, it simply does. And the right person, the one who truly deserves you, will never make you wonder if you are worth the effort. So the question is not, should I try harder? The question is, why am I trying harder for someone who isn't trying for me? You already know the answer. 2. Communicating versus chasing. There is a difference between reaching out and running after someone. A difference between expressing interest and begging for attention. A difference between two people meeting each other in the middle and one person constantly overextending themselves. A high-value woman knows this difference. She knows that love should flow, not be forced. She communicates, but she does not chase. She gives, but only to those who reciprocate. But what about the moments of doubt? The times when you wonder if you should just try harder, be more patient, and prove yourself a little more? It's easy to get caught in that mindset. Tell yourself that if you just say the right thing, wait a little longer, or show a little more understanding, he will finally step up. But a man who is truly interested does not need convincing. His actions will be clear, consistent, and intentional. The Stoics understood this well. Seneca once said, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." If your energy is spread too thin, constantly directed towards someone who is only half present, you end up empty. You chase a mirage, hoping it will become real, while your own peace slowly slips away. Sophie found herself in this very place. She met Ryan at a mutual friend's dinner party. He was charming, confident, effortlessly drawing people into conversation. When their eyes met across the room, she felt something electric. The kind of connection that makes you think, maybe, this is something real. She reached out the next day with a simple message, just acknowledging the fun of the night before. He responded, quickly but briefly, encouraging, but not exactly engaging. She didn't think much of it at first. She waited a few days before sending another message. Again, he replied, but never first, never initiating, never making any real effort to move things forward. Still, she told herself he was busy, that maybe he wasn't much of a texter, that maybe if she gave it more time, he'd come around. She made excuses for his lack of effort because she didn't want to admit what she already knew. If he wanted this, he would show it. She found herself in a cycle, always the one to reach out, to suggest plans, to carry the conversation. And each time he responded, even if it was just with a single-word reply, it gave her just enough hope to keep trying. She was communicating, but she was also chasing. And the more she chased, the less he had to do. The worst part? Every time she reached out, she felt a small sting of disappointment. A part of her already knew she was investing in someone who wasn't truly invested in her. She wasn't waiting for a real relationship, she was waiting for permission to matter. Dating is like a game of ping pong. You hit the ball, and the other person is supposed to hit it back. That's how the game continues. But if you keep serving and they never return the shot, you're not playing a game. You're just hitting balls into an empty space, hoping someone, someday, will decide to play. Sophie realized this after yet another unanswered message, after yet another plan that never materialized. She stopped. Not because she was angry, not because she wanted to make a point, but because she finally accepted reality. A man who truly values you will not leave you in doubt. And here's where Stoicism offers something powerful. It teaches us to act with self-respect, not desperation, to engage with reality, not fantasy. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." And if a relationship does not feel right, if it does not feel balanced, mutual, and secure, then why keep investing in it? A relationship is like a dance. You take a step forward, and the other person should step forward too. But if you move closer, and they keep stepping back, what are you really doing? You're dancing alone. And this is the truth many women avoid. Because walking away means acknowledging that the person you wanted so much wasn't truly meant for you. But ignoring reality doesn't change it. It only prolongs the pain. Sophie's story is not unique. Women everywhere have found themselves in this situation. Waiting, hoping, trying to decode mixed signals that were never really mixed at all. The answer was always there. If someone truly wants you in their life, they will make an effort to keep you there. The right man will not make you chase. He will meet you in the middle, not watch from a distance as you exhaust yourself trying to reach him. Communicating means opening the door. It does not mean waiting outside in the rain, hoping someone will let you in. You do not need to chase a man to make him see your worth. The one who truly values you will recognize it from the start and act accordingly. 3. Chasing signals, low self-worth. Pursuing someone who doesn't reciprocate is like knocking on the door of an abandoned house. You can keep knocking, hoping someone will answer, but deep down, you already know, no one is home. So why are you still standing there? Why do you keep waiting for a door that was never meant to open for you? A woman who knows her worth does not beg to be seen. She does not prove her value to someone who refuses to recognize it. She walks away, not because she's bitter, not because she's given up on love, but because she understands that love should be welcomed, not extracted. But what if you've already invested years? What if you've given everything to a relationship, hoping that one day they'll finally give back? The mind plays tricks in these moments. It tells you to hold on, to keep giving, to be patient, because walking away feels like failure. But is it really a failure to leave something that was never truly yours? Or is it strength? Marcus Aurelius once said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." If your thoughts are consumed by waiting, overanalyzing, and justifying someone else's lack of effort, what kind of life are you building? This was the reality for Claire. She had been with Adam for 5 years. At first, everything seemed perfect. Late-night conversations, spontaneous road trips, small moments that made her believe in something real. But over time, the effort shifted. She was still giving, still showing up, still trying. He, on the other hand, became comfortable in her effort, not invested in the relationship itself. She planned their weekends. She checked in first. She adjusted her life to accommodate his. And when she voiced her concerns, he always had the same response. "You're overthinking. I'm just not great at expressing emotions." She convinced herself that maybe she was being too demanding. Maybe this was just how love worked, that sometimes one person had to give more. So she stayed. She rationalized, she minimized her needs so that she wouldn't feel like a burden. But deep inside, a quiet truth was growing. She was in a relationship with someone who liked her presence but didn't truly value her. And then, one night, something small changed everything. They were at dinner, sitting across from each other, but it felt like miles apart. She was talking about something important, something personal, but halfway through, she realized he wasn't really listening. He nodded at the right moments and gave the occasional, "Yeah, totally," but his eyes drifted, his attention elsewhere. It hit her. This wasn't a one-time thing. This was a pattern. She was pouring into someone who had stopped drinking from the cup a long time ago. That night, she stopped waiting for him to see her. She saw herself. A woman should never feel like she has to convince someone to care. Love is not a courtroom where you present evidence, hoping for a verdict in your favor. It should be given freely, willingly, and without hesitation. Imagine standing in front of a mirror, speaking to your reflection, but the glass remains blank. No response, no recognition. That's what it feels like to stay in a relationship where you are unseen. And yet, many women stay, convincing themselves that things will change. If they are patient enough, understanding enough, and forgiving enough, the other person will finally step up. But love does not work that way. If someone values you, they will never make you feel like an afterthought. The problem is not that you love too much. It's that you keep giving love to someone who does not have the capacity to return it. And that is where Stoicism brings clarity. Epictetus taught that we should only focus on what we can control. You cannot control how much someone invests in you, but you can control what you tolerate. Claire could have continued waiting, hoping that Adam would suddenly become the partner she needed. Instead, she chose herself. She walked away, not because she didn't love him, but because she loved herself enough to stop proving her worth to someone who was never willing to see it. A relationship should be a shared experience, not an endurance test. If you have to fight for basic attention, for bare minimum effort, for moments of connection, then what exactly are you holding on to? Love is a two-way street. If you keep walking towards someone who never moves in your direction, then at some point you have to stop and ask yourself, are you in love with them, or are you in love with the idea of what they could be? The right person will not make you question whether you are enough. They will make you feel seen, valued, and appreciated, not just in the beginning, but always. So if you find yourself waiting for a love that never fully arrives, ask yourself, are you knocking on an abandoned door? Or are you ready to turn away and find one that opens effortlessly? 4. Consistency and effort. A relationship is like a long road trip. If only one person is driving while the other sleeps through the entire journey, it's not a partnership, it's a solo trip with a passenger. If you are always the one making plans, checking in, and keeping the connection alive while the other person coasts, you are not in a relationship. You are carrying it. A true relationship is built on two people choosing each other, every day, not one person constantly proving they are worth the effort. But the effort doesn't mean grand gestures. It's not just about roses and candlelit dinners. The real effort is consistency. It's the small, everyday things. A message in the morning just to say hello, remembering what matters to the other person, making space for them, not just when it's convenient, but because they are a priority. So how do you know if a relationship is worth holding on to? If he makes an effort, if he shows up, not just when things are exciting, but even when life is chaotic, he's worth it. If he only engages when he's in the mood, when it's easy, when there's nothing else competing for his attention, then you already have your answer. The Stoics believed in actions over words. Seneca said, "It is quality rather than quantity that matters." This applies to love. It's not about how many messages he sends or how many times he says the right thing. It's about whether his actions align with his words. Whether he makes you feel secure and valued, not just entertained. Sophia understood this well. She had been in a committed relationship for years, and through every season of life, both she and her partner invested in each other. Not just in the beginning, when everything was new, but through difficult days, when patience was tested. There were no games, no silent treatments, no waiting to see who would text first. It was a partnership, not a performance. When work got demanding, they still found time for one another, not in grand, extravagant ways, but in the small details. A midday text just to check in, a spontaneous coffee run when the other had a long day, a quiet moment of support when words weren't needed. They weren't perfect. They argued they had differences, but they chose to work through them, not avoid them. That was the difference. Sophia never felt like she was the only one holding things together. She never had to wonder where she stood. She didn't have to fight for his presence, because he was already there. That's what true consistency looks like. Not just showing up when things are easy, but showing up because the relationship matters. Now picture something different. A woman sitting in a parked car, waiting. She was supposed to be on a road trip with someone, but he kept disappearing, stepping away to take a call, to check messages, to take care of just one more thing. She waits, she forgives, she rationalizes. But the truth is, she is not on a journey with him. She is sitting alone, hoping he will decide to drive. A relationship should never feel like waiting. It should never feel like a one-sided journey. If you are the only one holding the map, making the plans, and initiating every moment of connection, then you are not in a shared experience. You are in a relationship with potential, not reality. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. The same applies to love. Stop arguing with yourself about whether he cares, whether he will change, or whether you are asking for too much. A man who truly values you will not make you question his effort. A high-value woman does not stay in a relationship where her presence is optional. She does not convince someone to meet her halfway. She expects it. And when it isn't there, she walks away. Not because she doesn't care, but because she cares too much about herself to stay where she is not prioritized. Love is about consistency, about two people choosing each other, again and again. If you find yourself constantly waiting, constantly initiating, constantly excusing a lack of effort, stop. You are not a passenger in your own life. Find someone who is willing to take the journey with you. 5. Respect and kindness. There are two kinds of relationships. One where respect flows naturally, where both people feel valued, heard, and safe, and another where one person constantly wonders if they are too much, too demanding, or asking for things they don't deserve. A man who truly respects you will never make you question whether you deserve his kindness. He will not treat you well only when it suits him, only when he wants something, only when he's in a good mood. Respect is not conditional. It is not a bargaining chip that disappears when things get inconvenient. But how do you know if respect is truly present? It shows in the small things: how he listens, how he responds to your feelings, how he considers your time and emotions. It's in the way he speaks to you in private and in front of others. A man who respects you will not cut you down to feel stronger. He will not belittle your opinions to feel more in control. He will not withdraw affection as punishment. And what about kindness? Many confuse it with simple politeness, but it is more than that. True kindness is when someone values you enough to care for your heart, even in difficult moments. It's how they show up in disagreements, how they make space for your feelings, how they offer patience instead of frustration. Some men are kind in the beginning. They give you their attention, their best words, their sweetest gestures. But kindness isn't about how someone treats you when everything is good. It's about how they treat you when life is messy, when things go wrong, when there's nothing to gain. A man who truly values you will still be kind even when he's stressed, even when he's frustrated, even when you are not at your best. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." A man who lacks respect and kindness does not deserve the energy of a woman who knows her worth. If you find yourself constantly making excuses for why someone treats you poorly, if you keep telling yourself that's just how he is, or he doesn't mean it, then you are ignoring the truth. Love should not feel like a test of endurance. You do not have to prove your ability to withstand neglect or disrespect. You do not have to earn basic decency. Imagine you are holding a delicate glass of water, offering it to someone. If they take it gently, understanding its value, they will hold it with care. But if they are careless, if they grip it too hard, drop it, or treat it like it's replaceable, eventually it will break. And when it does, they won't be the ones left to pick up the pieces. You will. Respect works the same way. If someone handles your emotions, your trust, your love with care, then you know they value you. But if they constantly dismiss your feelings, if they ignore your needs, if they make you feel like you are asking for too much when all you want is basic human decency, then they are showing you who they really are. A woman who respects herself does not tolerate disrespect in the name of love. She does not confuse patience with self-sacrifice. She does not shrink herself to keep someone comfortable. There is a difference between someone who is flawed and someone who is fundamentally incapable of treating you well. We are all imperfect, and mistakes happen. But if disrespect is a pattern, if you always feel like you have to shrink yourself to keep the peace, then what exactly are you holding on to? Epictetus once said, "How long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself?" If you are constantly forgiving behavior that you would never accept from a friend, from a family member, or from anyone else in your life, then ask yourself, why? Respect is the foundation of every strong relationship. Without it, love cannot last. Without it, you will always feel like you are fighting for something that should have been given freely. A woman who respects herself will not chase after crumbs of kindness, She will not accept half-efforts and empty apologies. She will not beg for the bare minimum. She will walk away, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. If he truly values you, you will not have to ask for respect. It will already be there. 6. Alignment of values and goals. Love is not enough. People like to believe that it is, that as long as two people feel deeply for each other, everything else will work itself out. But love without alignment is like two people paddling in opposite directions in the same boat. No matter how hard they row, they never move forward together. A relationship is not just about emotions, it's about shared direction. You can deeply care for someone, but if your values, priorities, and visions for the future don't align, love will turn into a struggle instead of a partnership. The mistake many women make is ignoring this in the beginning. They focus on chemistry, on attraction, and on how effortless the connection feels at first. And when differences start appearing, one person wants commitment, the other prefers freedom. One prioritizes family, the other values independence. They convince themselves that love will bridge the gap. But love alone does not fix misalignment. Seneca wrote, "If a man does not know to what port he is sailing, no wind is favorable." If two people do not share the same destination, no amount of effort can compensate for fundamental differences. It's not just about wanting the same things, it's about moving at the same pace with the same level of commitment. If one person is constantly waiting for the other to catch up, waiting for them to be ready, to grow, to change, then what they truly want is potential, not reality. Imagine a woman standing at a train station holding a ticket to her dream destination. She meets a man who has no ticket, no plan, no idea where he wants to go. But she likes him, so she waits, hoping that one day he'll decide to board the same train. Days pass, months, years. She watches other people come and go, moving toward their futures, while she stands still, waiting for a man who is perfectly content where he is. At what point does waiting become wasted time? This is where Stoicism provides clarity. You do not control another person's journey, only your own. Epictetus taught that the greatest power lies in mastering what is within our control and releasing what is not. If someone does not share your vision for life, if they do not want to build something with you, then it is not your job to wait until they do. So how do you know if your values and goals align? It's not about words, it's about action. A man who truly wants the same things as you will not make you wonder. His consistency, his choices, and the way he integrates you into his life will be proof. But if you constantly have to compromise your needs, silence your dreams, or make yourself smaller to fit into his life, then you are not growing together. You are shrinking yourself to accommodate him. A relationship should feel like two people walking in the same direction, at the same pace. Not one person walks ahead while the other lags behind, making promises to catch up someday. And yet, so many women settle for relationships where they are always waiting for him to be ready, waiting for him to grow up, waiting for him to see what they see. But what they fail to realize is that if a man truly sees a future with you, he will act accordingly. He will not hesitate. He will not make you feel like a backup plan. Imagine planting a tree. You water it, you nurture it, you give it sunlight. But if the soil is bad, no matter how much care you give, it will not grow. It is not a reflection of your effort, but of the environment. Relationships are the same. If the foundation is wrong, if the values, goals, and priorities do not match, then no amount of love will make it work. You cannot force something to grow where it was never meant to take root. A woman who values herself does not beg someone to meet her at the same level. She does not put her life on hold in the hope that someone will eventually choose the same path. She moves forward with confidence, knowing that the right man will not need to be convinced to walk beside her. If you ever find yourself questioning whether someone is on the same path as you, ask yourself, are you moving forward together, or are you just waiting? 7. Growth potential and willingness to change. A relationship is like a long drive. If only one person is behind the wheel, navigating, staying alert, and ensuring the journey continues, while the other sleeps through the in-trip, then this is not a partnership. It is a one-sided journey. If you always find yourself steering the direction, initiating conversations, resolving conflicts, and keeping the connection alive, while the other person remains passive, then what you have is not a relationship. It is a burden. A relationship should not feel like dragging someone toward a better version of themselves. It should be a shared experience where both people are equally invested in growing, evolving, and making things work. There will always be challenges, misunderstandings, and personal flaws that surface over time. The real question is this person willing to learn and improve, or do they avoid responsibility and resist change? A man who values you will listen when you express concerns. He won't dismiss your emotions as overreacting, nor will he make you feel unreasonable for wanting growth. Instead, he will take a step forward, even if it's uncomfortable, because he understands that relationships require effort from both sides. But what if he doesn't? What if every conversation about change leads to silence, defensiveness, or avoidance? Stoicism teaches that true power lies in what you can control. You cannot force another person to grow. You cannot make them see what they are not ready to acknowledge. If someone continuously refuses to meet you halfway, if they avoid accountability and remain stagnant while you evolve, then no amount of patience will fix what they are unwilling to address. Epictetus once said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." If a man refuses to see his flaws, to take responsibility for his actions, to acknowledge that a strong relationship requires constant work, then you are not in a relationship with a partner. You are in a relationship with someone who expects you to carry everything alone. Rachel found herself in this exact position. She had been dating Chris for over a year. They shared laughter, good times, and undeniable chemistry. But there was one thing that kept resurfacing. Every time they had a disagreement, Chris would shut down. He wouldn't argue, but he also wouldn't engage. He would fall silent, avoid eye contact, and sometimes even leave the conversation entirely. At first, Rachel thought maybe he just needed space, so she gave it to him. She waited for him to come back around, to revisit the topic, to acknowledge the problem, but he never did. Instead, things would go back to normal as if the argument had never happened. It wasn't anger. It wasn't fighting. It was something worse, avoidance. And that avoidance created distance. Rachel started feeling unheard, like her emotions didn't matter, like every problem in the relationship was hers to deal with alone. One evening, after another unresolved issue, she sat across from Chris and told him the truth. If we're going to build something real, we need to talk about things that matter. If you shut down every time I bring up a problem, I don't know how we're supposed to grow. For the first time, Chris didn't walk away. He listened. He admitted that confrontation made him uncomfortable, that he had spent years avoiding difficult conversations, and that he didn't know how to express emotions under pressure. But then he did something that changed everything. He made an effort. Over the next few months, he didn't just hear Rachel's concerns, he acted on them. He started leaning into difficult conversations instead of running from them. He asked questions instead of retreating. He showed Rachel that he wasn't just there for the easy parts of the relationship. He was willing to work through the hard parts too. And that is what separates a relationship worth fighting for from one that drains you. A man who cares will make an effort to grow with you. He will not be perfect. He will not change overnight, but he will try. And that effort, that willingness to meet you in the middle, is what builds something worth holding on to. Imagine a garden. If both people water it, tend to it, and nurture it, it flourishes. But if only one person is doing the work, planting the seeds, pulling the weeds, making sure it survives, while the other simply enjoys the shade, eventually, one person becomes exhausted. Growth requires two people. If one person is willing to improve, to face challenges, to become better for the sake of the relationship, then there is something worth fighting for. But if only one person is doing the growing, while the other remains unchanged, then it's time to stop carrying the weight alone. A woman who values herself does not waste energy on a man who refuses to evolve. She does not wait for someone to become who they should have already been. She invests in a relationship where both people put in the effort, where change, communication, and growth are not one-sided obligations, but shared commitments. If he refuses to grow, refuses to listen, refuses to meet you halfway, then the real question isn't whether he is worth fighting for. The real question is, Why are you fighting for something he is not even willing to build? 8. Your gut feeling. Intuition is a powerful tool. If you constantly feel uneasy, if something deep inside tells you that something isn't right, listen to it. Do not dismiss your instincts just because you want the relationship to work. A woman's intuition is not paranoia. It is wisdom. It is your subconscious recognizing patterns before your mind fully processes them. If you always feel like you are the only one holding the relationship together, if his actions don't match his words, if your energy is constantly drained trying to make things feel okay, that is not love. It is self-sacrifice. Not all red flags are loud. Some come in whispers, an uneasy feeling after a conversation, a moment of doubt when his affection feels forced, a growing sense that you are more invested than he is. These signs don't always come in the form of big betrayals or obvious neglect. Sometimes they appear as small, consistent absences, emotional distance, lack of effort, an unspoken disconnect that you feel but can't quite explain. Senna felt this deeply. At first glance, everything seemed fine. He wasn't unkind, he didn't say hurtful things, he wasn't obviously distant. But still, she felt it, a quiet disconnection. She was always the one reaching out first, planning their time together, making the relationship feel alive. And while he responded, his energy was never fully there. When she shared something personal, his reaction was polite but indifferent. When she expressed excitement, his responses were short. There was no depth, no real engagement. She tried to silence the doubt. Maybe he was just reserved. Maybe he needed time. Maybe she was overthinking. But the more she ignored the feeling, the louder it became. One night, as they sat across from each other at dinner, she studied his face. He was there physically, but emotionally, he was somewhere else. She had spent months convincing herself that his presence was enough, but now she saw it clearly. He was not really choosing her. He was simply responding to her effort. So she stopped trying. For the next week, she waited. She didn't text first. She didn't initiate plans. She didn't hold up the weight of the relationship alone. And silence followed. No messages asking how her day was. No effort to see her. No sign that he noticed the change at all. It was in that silence that she realized the truth. She had been in a relationship with her own effort, not with him. And that's the thing about intuition. It will tell you when something is wrong. The question is, do you trust yourself enough to listen? Stoicism teaches that peace comes from accepting reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." If your thoughts are constantly filled with doubt, with worry, with a feeling that something is missing, that is not love. That is your mind begging you to see the truth. A man who truly values you will not make you wonder where you stand. He will not leave you questioning whether his affection is real or convenient. But too often, we convince ourselves to stay. We tell ourselves we are being impatient, that we need to be more understanding, and that relationships take time. And while this is true, there is a difference between patience and waiting for something that will never happen. Imagine standing in a room with a candle that barely flickers. You shield it, protect it, try to keep it from going out. You spend all your time keeping the flame alive, but it never burns brightly. Then one day, you step outside and realize there is an entire sky full of sunlight waiting for you. That is what it feels like to leave a relationship where you are the only one trying. And yet, walking away is hard. Not because you don't know the truth, but because the truth means letting go of what could have been. It means accepting that no matter how much you cared, no matter how deeply you wanted it to work, the relationship was never built on equal effort. But what you walk away from is just as important as what you walk toward. If you leave behind uncertainty, inconsistency, and emotional exhaustion, you make space for something real. For someone who will show up without hesitation. For love that doesn't feel like convincing. Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." If you want a relationship where you feel valued, respected, and emotionally safe, then choose only those who make you feel that way. A woman who trusts herself does not beg for attention. She does not waste energy convincing a man to care. She listens to her gut, honors her intuition, and walks away from anything that makes her feel unseen. Because real love is not something you have to chase. It is something that meets you where you are. A relationship is not just about love, it is about effort, alignment, and mutual respect. It is about two people choosing each other, not out of convenience, but because they see value in growing together. If there's one thing to take away from this, it is this. You should never have to convince someone to care. You should never feel like you are the only one investing, the only one adjusting, the only one trying to keep the connection alive. A relationship should not feel like a constant negotiation of your worth. The Stoics believed in self-mastery, in understanding what is within your control and letting go of what is not. You cannot make someone invest in you. You cannot force someone to grow. You cannot build a relationship alone. What you can do is recognize when something is not serving you and have the strength to walk away. So ask yourself, is this relationship bringing me peace, or am I constantly chasing reassurance? Am I building something real, or am I holding on to potential? The answers are already inside you. Your gut feeling is your greatest guide. Practice investing, then testing. Communicate, but don't chase. Pay attention to effort and consistency. Demand respect. Align yourself with those who share your values. And above all, trust your intuition. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. If you've ever had to question whether someone truly values you, share your story in the comments below. Let's start a conversation about recognizing our worth and never settling for less than what we deserve.